America's rise as the financial superpower of the world was not sudden, inevitable, or easy. It was a long, uncertain journey shaped by debt, ambition, innovation, war, and an unusual relationship with money itself. At its birth, the United States was not rich. It had no gold reserves worth mentioning, no global banks, no powerful currency, and no established financial reputation. In fact, many in Europe believed the American experiment would fail precisely because it lacked financial discipline. Yet, within just 2 centuries, the United States transformed itself into the center of global finance, issuing the world's most powerful currency and controlling institutions that shaped the global economy. This transformation tells a deeper story about trust, structure, and the strategic use of finance as power. The story begins after the American Revolutionary War, when victory brought freedom, but also chaos. The young nation was drowning in debt. It owed money to France, the Netherlands, private lenders, and its own soldiers. Each state had its own debts, currencies, and financial rules. There was no unified system, no central bank, and no reliable way to collect taxes. America was politically independent, but financially fragile. Many feared the country would collapse under the weight of its obligations, proving that republics could not manage money responsibly. This is where one man changed history, Alexander Hamilton. As the first Secretary of the Treasury, Hamilton understood something radical for his time, that national debt, if managed properly, could be a source of strength rather than weakness. He proposed that the federal government assume all state debts and repay them in full. This decision shocked critics, who feared corruption and centralized power. But Hamilton saw the bigger picture. By honoring its debts, the United States would build credibility. Investors would trust the government. Credit would flow. Confidence would grow. And confidence, more than gold, would become the foundation of American finance. Hamilton also pushed for the creation of a national bank to stabilize currency, manage government funds, and support commerce. Though controversial, this institution brought order to financial chaos. For the first time, America had a centralized financial system capable of supporting growth. These early decisions planted the seeds of America's future dominance, not through conquest, but through credibility. As the 19th century unfolded, America expanded westward, and finance followed. Railroads became the arteries of economic growth, linking farms, factories, and cities. But railroads were expensive, and the government alone could not fund them. This led to massive bond issuance, drawing in domestic and foreign investors. British capital, in particular, poured into American infrastructure. The United States became a magnet for global money, not because it was already rich, but because it promised growth. Banks multiplied. Stock exchanges expanded. Corporate finance emerged as a powerful force. America learned how to convert land, labor, and resources into financial assets. Steel, oil, and rail companies became investment vehicles, not just businesses. Wealth was no longer stored only in land or gold. It was embedded in shares, bonds, and contracts. This financialization of growth was a critical step toward global power. However, America's financial rise was not smooth. The country experienced repeated panics and crashes throughout the 19th century. Banks failed, markets collapsed, and ordinary citizens lost savings overnight. These crises revealed a major weakness: the lack of a central authority to act as a lender of last resort. Money supply fluctuated wildly. Fear traveled faster than facts. Each collapse taught the same lesson: modern economies needed strong financial institutions to survive. That lesson was finally absorbed in the early 20th century with the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1913. The Federal Reserve was designed to stabilize the banking system, control money supply, and respond to crises. It was not perfect, but it gave America something it had never had before: centralized monetary power. With the Fed, the U.S. could now manage inflation, influence interest rates, and protect banks from collapse. This institution would later become one of the most powerful financial bodies in the world. Then came World War I, and everything changed. While Europe burned, America produced. While nations exhausted their treasuries, the U.S. lent money. By the end of the war, America had shifted from being a debtor nation to the world's largest creditor. Gold flowed into U.S. vaults. New York replaced London as the center of global finance. For the first time, the world looked to America not just for goods, but for capital. Yet dominance brings responsibility and risk. The 1920s saw rapid financial expansion, speculation, and excess. When the stock market crashed in 1929, it triggered the Great Depression, the worst economic collapse in modern history. Banks failed by the thousands. Unemployment soared. Trust in the financial system evaporated. America's claim to financial leadership seemed shattered. But here again, the U.S. adapted. Under Franklin D. Roosevelt, the government restructured the financial system. Banks were regulated. Deposits were insured. Markets were supervised. The goal was not to eliminate risk, but to restore trust. These reforms rebuilt confidence in American finance and strengthened the relationship between the state and the economy. America learned that unchecked markets could destroy themselves, and that regulation was not the enemy of capitalism, but its safeguard. World War II sealed America's financial destiny. Once again, while much of the world was devastated, the United States emerged stronger. Its factories powered the Allied victory. Its farms fed armies. Its banks financed reconstruction. At the war's end, the U.S. held the majority of the world's gold reserves and controlled the largest, most productive economy on Earth. In 1944, global leaders met at Bretton Woods to design a new financial order. The result was revolutionary. The U.S. dollar became the world's reserve currency, backed by gold. Other currencies were pegged to the dollar. Institutions like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank were created, largely shaped by American interests. The global financial system was now built around the U.S., not just economically but structurally. Even when America abandoned the gold standard in 1971, the dollar did not lose its dominance. Instead, it gained flexibility. The world continued to trust the dollar, not because it was backed by gold, but because it was backed by the American economy, its military power, and its political stability. Oil was priced in dollars. Global trade settled in dollars. International debt was issued in dollars. The currency became the bloodstream of global commerce. Wall Street evolved into the nerve center of this system. American financial institutions grew massive, complex, and influential. Investment banks, hedge funds, and rating agencies gained the ability to shape markets worldwide. Capital flowed through New York the way goods once flowed through empires. Decisions made in American boardrooms affected jobs, currencies, and governments across continents.